Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to fix your deliverability issues and exactly how we do it. And we've done it for dozens of e-commerce brands. And I'm going to pull back the curtain specifically with one client and show you step by step exactly how we took a brand from terrible deliverability, like I'm talking 7-8% open rates, all the way up to 60% open rates with their emails and also doubling their email revenue in the process. So let's dive in. All right, guys. So as promised, I'm going to show you exactly what we did to improve open rates, improve deliverability, and ultimately get a significant increase in revenue for this client. So the first thing you got to do is just figure out that you actually have a deliverability problem. So you can see here, the client was sending a ton of emails out, but you can see like the open rates are 11%, 17%, 12%, 13%, 12%, 10%, 9%, all pretty brutal. And they're sending a ton of emails out. And you can see they're just sending to their master list. So here's the thing. The first thing you got to figure out, like I said, is just, do they have a deliverability problem? You can see here that they've got a deliverability problem because at the end of the day, if you change your subject line or your preview text or your sender name, that's going to have nominal impacts, and that will change things, right? It will absolutely change things. But it's not going to change things from a 9% open rate to a 50 or 60% open rate. That's just not a reality. And whenever I see something like this happen, I look at it and I'm like, immediately red flag, you've got a deliverability issue and you need to fix this ASAP. So once you figured out, yes, I do have a deliverability issue, the next thing to figure out is why you actually have a deliverability issue. So a couple of reasons that this could be, and I've already identified it in this one, is you're sending to the entire list. If you're sending to your entire list, you likely will have deliverability issues. It's just a no-no. If you talk to any sort of email marketer who's done this for any sort of period of time, don't send to your entire list. Don't send to the master list. The only time to really do that, if it's cleaned, is like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, any massive events you might have. But aside from that, just not something you want to do. The other thing kind of in hand with that is just no segmentation, right? The third piece is a bunch of spam emails. So you may be sending to that entire list, or even if you're sending to a segment, if you have a bunch of spam emails in there, you need to make sure that people are not only receiving the emails, but also that they're not just like bots, right? They're not just randomly, subscribing to your email list, and they're never actually engaging with your brand, your website, etc. And then the last thing is just, you have a lot of spam content, right? So if you're using basically like the things you want to watch out for here are certain like kind of spammy keywords in subject lines, preview text in your email. So if you're saying a lot of things like free, get this today only, you're using a lot of like exclusivity and things like that. It's fine in very small doses, but you got to watch out and be careful about what you're kind of sending, what you're saying within your subject lines, in your preview text, and even within your email body. Because again, ESPs are going to look at that and they're going to be like, looks like spam, looks kind of sketch. So just be really, really cognizant of that. You can go and there's actually a really cool tool we use called Spam Checker. There's a bunch of these out there, but you can see like, okay, guaranteed, ASAP, any sort of things that are overly urgent, it's going to flag it for shady, overpromise, unnatural, etc. So keep an eye on that. That's really, really, really important. Try running your subject lines through that or preview text through that, just to make sure that's not setting things off as well. So deliverability really falls into one of four categories. It's bounce rates, it's unsubscribe rates, spam rates, or it's people who are not receiving your emails, likely because of the compounding effects of one of those three things. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you continuously send to people who are bouncing, for example, what that's going to tell ESPs and that's going to trigger them to believe is that you have a bunch of people on your list who probably aren't engaged because they probably didn't get added in by their own choice, right? They didn't make the choice to subscribe because if all the emails are bouncing, you probably don't have, they probably didn't come from a verified source. right? So keep that in mind because that's really, really important. Now, if you can figure that out, basically what you want to do, you want to go into some of your campaigns. So like what I do, for example, is go to one of these. I go to one that's, call it like 9%, right? Go into the campaign. And then what you're going to want to do is look at deliverability here. So this is going to show you, and this is specific to Klaviyo, but this is true with any sort of ESP. So what this is showing me is like, okay, click rate is pretty brutal. Open rate is terribly brutal. Bounce rate isn't like all that bad. Unsubscribe rate, not all that bad. Spam rate, not all that bad, right? Like this is actually pretty decent. Unsubscribe rate is pretty decent. Like, okay, well, what's the issue then? Right? The issue then comes down to that number 4, right? So people are not receiving your emails, likely due to one of these things compounding over the course of time. Okay, so now that you figured out that you actually have a deliverability problem, you figured out why you have a deliverability problem. And if it's not as clean as this, if you have like a 10% bounce rate or a 5% bounce rate, or you have a crazy high unsubscribe rate, like a 5 or 10% unsubscribe rate, or your marked as spam rate is like 0.5 or 1% or 2%, that's going to be a big issue. And that'll identify where you need to kind of improve things. If it's one of these, if it's unsubscribe rate or spam complaint rate, that is you. That is caused by you because you're sending content to people who don't care. Or they, not only do they not care, but they care enough not to, they care enough to unsubscribe and harm your email in the process by marking it as spam, right? So if you're sending to a bunch of people who haven't subscribed, if you buy a list, please, for the love of God, don't buy a list. Those are going to be the reasons you might get high unsubscribe rates and spam complaint rates. And then bounce rates are going to be largely, it could be, this is going to be a lack of list cleaning, but it also could be something to do with soft bounces. It could be hard bounces as well. It could be just people's inboxes are full or something along those lines. So keep an eye on that. If it looks like this, then the issue is number 4. If one of these is way off, and it'll actually flag this for you in here, then you know what the issue is as well. So step 3 is turning off any non-high value flows. So these guys didn't have a ton of flows in the first place, but what you then want to do is turn off like a site abandonment, a win back, a sunset. If you have like an added to cart, any flows, and let me differentiate add to cart versus initiate checkout, like different there. And really what you're trying to do is just turn off anything that isn't producing revenue and that isn't super high intent. Like a sunset flow is the last thing you want to send. A win back flow, again, not something you want to send. And then like any lower value flows, or even lower value emails within those flows. Like for example, if you have an abandoned checkout flow that has 6 emails in it, maybe just turn off the last 3 if they're not getting great open rates, right? If they're getting great open rates, totally different, right? That's all good. So that's essentially kind of what you want to do as step 3. Now, step 4 is like, again, once you figure out you have that deliverability problem, you can start really dissecting and fixing things. So the first thing you want to do is go into segments and identify unengaged people, right? So I'm going to go ahead and find that unengaged. So, and there's going to be a couple people that you're going to want to, there's going to be a couple different segments that you're going to want to use here. So I'll open these all up and I'll show you. Okay. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just look at people. If your list is large and you're having an issue like this client was having, then what you're going to want to do is go in and just look at the people who have received at least 10 emails. And in this case, we did between 90 and 300 or 730 days because they've been sending emails for quite a while, and they've opened 0 times overall time. So they have never opened an email, and they can receive because they're subscribed, right? These are all of the people then who have literally never seen you in their email inbox. So these are the types of people you want to just immediately suppress because they've never seen you. Chances are it's going to take a ton of time for you to scrape your way up. And the other thing we did here, because they have a lot of purchasers, we excluded people who had purchased as well. So obviously there's not a lot in here now because we cleaned it all out, but this is a huge, huge, huge thing to look at. So that's the first piece. The second piece is looking at, like what I mentioned before, is soft bounces. So what these are is anyone who's bounced more than twice in the last 90 days, and they can receive email marketing. We want to suppress these people. Again, if you're having deliverability issues, we might be a little bit more flex and a little bit more, a little bit less strict as time goes on. But the reality here is, like, you got to fix this shit real quick. So what we do is we're super, super strict with this. Excuse me. And then we suppress these people, or we exclude them. So the next segment, this is a slightly different segment here, and these people are going to be slightly more engaged. So they've received at least 10 emails in the last 90 days, and they haven't opened anything in the last 90 days either. Now, the difference between this segment and this segment is these people have never opened, right? And we're using a larger time frame, and these people have just not opened in the last 90 days. Now, some of these people may not have ever opened, but once we exclude all of these people, those people will not exist anymore, right? So that sounds savage. Anyways, those are the segments that you want to create here. You then, like I said, want to suppress these people from the list and then follow the steps that I mentioned before for the other segments as well. The next thing you want to do is create segments that are engaged. So what we do is we look at the 30-day engaged purchasers, 60-day engaged purchasers, 90-day engaged purchasers, and then we do the same thing for leads. So 90-day engaged leads, 60-day engaged leads, and 30-day engaged leads. And then what we're going to do is slowly start to kind of look at incorporating those into new campaigns. So again, we can start with 30, 60, 90. We then can add 180. We can add 120. But those are kind of the core segments you're going to want to start with. You can also, if you don't want to differentiate between purchasers and non-purchasers, you can just say engaged all. And this would just be something like this. So it would be clicked email at least once in the last 30 days, opened email at least once in the last 30 days, and can receive email marketing, right? So pretty broad there. But that's kind of like the initial segment builds that you're going to want to incorporate here. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do, and I'll show you this because this is really wild. I'm just going to scroll down. So like I said, this was the open rates initially, and then we had our first send after doing list cleaning, and that was right here. Look at that jump, right? So we kind of let them know they needed to do some things, and they did that before we even started. And then we were able to get a 56% open rate, and like the revenue is pretty strong on this one as well. So what we did was we sent a text only email, right? So this was a text only email. You can see there's only text, there's no HTML. And all we did was send a sale update for people who, like, only the engaged people, right? So only the people who engaged in the last 30, 60 days or 90 days. Now, this was even larger than we needed to start with, but this was a good starting point. And especially after we did all that list cleaning, you could immediately see the results there, right? And then what we started doing is we started incorporating more. What we did was another text-based email. We saw the results were great on that one too. Engagement was strong. Purchases weren't quite as strong. And then what we started doing was incorporating images and non-text-based emails. So our first two non-text-based emails like produced more revenue than any of their other emails in the last year, probably many of them combined, right? So you can see that impact almost immediately. So we cleaned those people out. Again, this was actually sent to an even smaller segment than the initial two, because we would have engaged those people, right, from those text-only emails. The purpose of those would be to get to people's inboxes who we haven't been able to engage with. So the purpose there was get to those inboxes, get some people re-engaged, and then once they're re-engaged, they're now in that 30-day engaged lead or 30-day engaged purchasers segment there, right? We included the 60 as well here, but this is when we started sending more image-based emails or incorporating some images in there as well. Okay, so like I said, the first thing you want to do is exclude those flows that are not bringing in revenue or are having issues with open rates. And then what you want to do is refine down the current flows. So what we looked at initially was like, we just built out a flow that was about 3 emails long. So not super long for the welcome series, but what we actually started off doing is creating some pretty steep filters here. So we created placed orders 0 times, checkout started 0 times, bounced 0 times since starting the flow, and then email doesn't contain this. And we just noticed there's a lot of spam emails that contain that in our list. Now you can get even more robust here. We actually were a little bit more strict with the filters, but filters are going to help so much to make sure that you're sending to the right people, right? You can, if you really want to get crazy, you could do double opt-ins. We didn't need to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend it as maybe like a last resort. But yeah, like I said, we didn't need to do it here, and we fixed things super quickly. They had been sending like this, like super low open rates for like 9 months. So we were able to come in and fix things despite of that. So what we ended up doing first was actually incorporating a text-only email. Now you can see right now it's 3070 because we had the text-only email first. We wanted to warm things up, and then we started incorporating an image-based email or a designed email. And you can see here the open rates are actually, just believe it or not, stronger now with the image-based email. Click rates are also stronger, and then our placed order rates are also stronger. But we didn't start that way. We started sending 100% of the emails to a text-only email, and then 100% of the opt-ins to a text-only welcome number 1 email. And then we started slowly transitioning. So we did like we did 80-20, and then we did 50-50, and now we're doing 30-70, and soon we're going to be shutting this one off entirely. Once we did that, we added some more conditional splits in as well. So we added in, they've opened email at least once since starting the flow, or clicked the email at least once since starting the flow. And basically what we're trying to do here is just exclude anyone who is not opening and not engaging that first with that first email. Again, because we want to watch out for our deliverability and make sure that things are working okay. Klaviyo seemed to have frozen there, so I just restarted that. But like I was saying, you can see that the changes that we made dramatically changed up their email revenue, their overall revenue, and just like their overall email health. This was their May performance. And then if we look at even the last like 30 days, for example, you can see we've got 90,000 in total revenue, up to 22,000 from 12,000 in email attributed revenue. It's 25% now. And they're like getting better and better and better. And their campaign sends are more engaging. People are buying more. They're seeing more of an increase in Shopify as well, which should be a must there. But yeah, overall, there's a lot that we can do. We're still actually kind of slowly scaling things up. We're increasing the sizes of segments. We're sending more frequently. And then we're also incorporating some of the lower performing flows in there as well. So hopefully this video helped you out. It took a while to build this whole SOP out, but it works like wonders now. Like we had this client come on board, and within 2 months, we were able to completely fix their email system. Within a month, we were able to get their open rates way up, and now their entire system is completely fixed. So if you're having this problem and you don't want to do it yourself, reach out. We do help e-commerce brands who are doing over $50,000 a month. We run all of your email. We do everything end to end, from strategy to design to copy to iteration to A/B testing. And we kind of love what we do. We love nerding out over email. And if you don't want to, or if you're kind of running low on time, I'd invite you to apply below. There's a link just in the description, and you can apply right there. Thanks so much, and have a great day.